There's a high chance you've heard about Super Retail Group's brands and may have even shopped at one of their retailers yourself. Today we're chatting to Ben Neumann, Asset Protection Analyst at Super Retail Group, a little bit about what they do, how they manage risk, and the Protecht.ERM. Ben, thanks for joining us.
No worries, anytime.
So Ben, I alluded to it a little bit in the intro, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what Super Retail Group does and where you guys are based?
So we're a predominantly Australian-based retailer who has a number of different brands that are basically about inspiring our customers to engage with their passions. So whether that might be their favourite car through Super Cheap Auto, they might have a boat, enjoy fishing, a bit of camping and have visited one of our BCF stores, or they may have a favourite fitness workout regime that they can drop into Rebel Sport and get the latest things they need for that.
So Australians will definitely recognise your brands, but you guys are in a number of different countries and locations?
Super Cheap Auto is also present in the New Zealand market as well.
So your title itself, why don't you explain a little bit about what that actually is and what you do at Super Retail Group?
Yep, so asset protection is what a lot of retailers use these days for what people probably used to know as loss prevention back in the day. So I work within that team, supporting a number of field team members out across our business who deal directly with the retail stores, and it's about managing incidents and reporting on trends and rolling up data and kind of behind the scenes type stuff is my core role.
Sure. So speaking of managing incidents, what do you guys use Protecht.ERM for that fits that sort of area?
So when we bought the Protecht.ERM product on, we were primarily looking for an incident management system as opposed to a traditional ERM system for managing risk. And that was kind of our primary reason for moving to some form of solution, was to manage and be able to see at a rolled up level what incidents we had in the business.
Right, but it's evolved beyond that since that time?
Yep, absolutely. So we're just in the process now of actually rolling out the risk module of it to some parts of the business, but we've survived for 10 years now, using it as primarily an incident management tool.
So when people think of things like incident management, what underpins that might be a form. So that is one example. Another one might be, for example, compliance breaches, that sort of thing. What type of forms have you guys deployed with the Protecht.ERM?
Really broadly across the business now. So initially we started as using the product within our own team for what we called core loss prevention incidents, which can be things that occur in stores, from shop stealing to break and enters to threatening and abusive customers, things like that. Whereas we now use it across a number of functions within our business to manage new line compliance processes, to manage product inspections when they come into our supply chain for the first time, or even product metrics when we're bringing a new product into the business and loading it into our systems.
Right, so it seems pretty integrated throughout the business. I'm kind of scared to almost ask this question. What were you guys using before?
So if I go back to our core loss prevention incidents, we were using manual Microsoft Word templates, maybe some Excel spreadsheets at a region level, things like that. It was very, very ad hoc. You might save it on your local computer as a store manager, you might send it off to your area manager, you might send it to somebody else, or it just might end up getting printed out and filed in the manager's office, which when you were looking at it at a store-by-store concept was kind of okay, but what we really didn't have was the ability to see big picture what was happening in the business.
Right, absolutely, and the risk of not doing it the way you guys are doing now, what does that even feel like if you guys were to kind of go back to the old way?
Given how much we've grown in the 10 years since we bought the Protecht product on, the mind boggles as to how we would do that in the current state. So our retail store network across Australia and New Zealand now sits at around 670 sites, and trying to manage an ad hoc manual process in that size business would just be a recipe for disaster.
And I guess even getting some sort of baseline metrics across the board would be near impossible. I've got a couple of examples here in terms of metrics people will often look at trying to improve. For example, reduction of the number of safety incidents, reducing compliance breaches. Were there any specific ones for you guys, Ben, where you guys were looking to improve or see a reduction in at all?
So where we first started wasn't necessarily about seeing a reduction in something. It was really understanding what was happening in our business and using that to make informed decisions moving forward. So we really needed to know how big the pie was and what that was made up of before we could then start sort of the second phase of the project, which was start to bring things down. So over time we have brought our safety incidents into the Protecht.ERM product, and we went through a bit of a journey of having a reporting culture, and it's okay to talk about safety and it's okay to report incidents. And not only that, it's important to do so. And then from there, we could make informed decisions as to what our training standards were, what our processes were, what type of equipment we used across different sites. And then we were able to drive, as the second phase of that, a reduction in the number of incidents related to knife cutting by changing the types of knife we use in our retail stores and in our warehouses, for example.
Right, but first you had to get comfortable with the metrics, with that honesty, that transparency. How long has this whole process taken from when you guys started using Protect to that journey to where you guys are now looking at improving those metrics?
So it's constantly evolving. It really depends on what we've dropped in. So I would say normally we'd want a solid 12 to 18 months worth of data before we could go and make really informed decisions about change. So over that 10 years, there's been different points in time where we've brought different areas of the business in and different types of incidents. So some of our core registers that we're still using today were some of the first ones we deployed 10 years ago, whereas we have others that might only be sort of 12 to 18 months old and are really coming into maturity now.
Right, so business like yours, the challenges are always changing as the brand grows and grows from strength to strength. Obviously, those challenges shift with that as well. So in your particular role, how does Protect help achieve those challenges in your particular role and challenges you face day to day?
Yep, so it's a lot of my working day is spent on or in the Protect product. It's a large portion of what I do. Some parts of that is supporting other areas of the business, but a large portion of it is my own role. So the risk analytics module within Protecht.ERM, which is their business intelligence solution, really, really handy in terms of I don't have to spend hours upon hours manually crunching data anymore to provide insights and input back to the business. Once we get that data set up in an incident form, collect it well, we can quickly and easily transform it into one-click reports and dashboards via risk analytics, which is really, really beneficial to me.
Yeah, awesome. So how has the system evolved over time? And offline you touched on how it's been a little bit of a two-way, I guess, journey, which is always good to know.
Yep.
How has the system evolved in your eyes?
So the ARM product itself is incredibly different to when we first deployed it 10 years ago. It's infinitely more flexible. The risk analytics module I mentioned previously didn't exist in those days and has been introduced since, and it's been a fantastic addition to the product. But a lot of it's been, as you said, we have a really, really good two-way relationship with Protect in that they've been willing to take our feedback on board and some things that we suggest in a development sense, because we have been, we quite proudly call ourselves an atypical user of the Protect product. We're in a very, very different business to a lot of their other clients, and we're a lot more flexible. We're not as bound by a lot of the regulatory compliance issues that the financial industry is, and so on and so forth. So some of our needs are a little bit more flexible and can actually compete against other clients, but they're still willing to take that feedback on board, and quite a number of suggestions we've made over the years have actually been implemented into the product, which again just benefits our business.
Well, it's free market research, so it's good to see that's been implemented. Of all the features, and maybe they've been ones that just by yourself, or maybe they've been some from the tool itself, what are some of your favourite features of the Protecht.ERM?
So, as I mentioned earlier, the risk analytics module is really, really powerful as a business intelligence tool. It really comes down to the quality of information that you're gathering through your registers, through your compliance modules, and so on and so forth. But if you can get the right data in, some of the output is really, really fantastic. And then for the forms and the registers themselves, I think the ability to set conditional rules. So, as much as we are one company, we have three very distinct retail divisions who do have different needs and like to operate different in certain manners. So the ability to conditionally set things to appear or become mandatory, or to be able to be collected based on where the user in the business is coming from, has been really, really important to us.
You may have already addressed this in the answer you've just given me, but is there a particular example or scenario? I guess what I'm looking for is one of your most positive experiences using the system, whether it's been a tool set or a particular project. Can you talk to a positive experience?
Oh, good question. There's been a number of them. I think for us, part of the growth of it was the introduction of an audit module. So in the early days, we did what we call audits internally that probably differ to the traditional sense of an internal audit in a financial organisation. But we kind of used a workaround in the compliance module to action that, and the development and release of the audit module for us really lent credence to our audit program and gave it a lot more meat. But it also made it a lot better to execute for the people out in the team. So we, within our own department, have just over 20 people who are spread right across Australia and New Zealand out in the stores executing these. And the ability to make that process as simple and pain-free for them was really, really important, because that freed them up to do other tasks or even execute more audits, gathering us more data.
Yeah, awesome. So you guys have obviously been able to go on this journey, not only with the system, but also the way you guys see risks and manage incidents and whatnot. What would you say to a counterpart, someone like yourself in an organisation who they're still managing spreadsheets and they're still kind of doing it the old way? What would you say to them?
I'd challenge people to think whether they're actually in a position to be able to make informed decisions about their business on this kind of scale. So unless you can really, really roll up what's happening right across the board, but still have the ability to drill down to either a particular brand for us, or sometimes we'll do it geographically, by city, by state, by country even. And previously we'd make a decision around a process or some form of equipment that we might deploy to our stores, and we deploy that across a network of 670 stores. Now, if we can target that and make a more informed decision based on our incident data, we may find we only need to deploy that resource or that particular product to 10% of our business to make a difference. So there's a substantial capital saving in that to be had alone.
Yeah, awesome. There's plenty of reasons there. So again, I think for me a common thread to hearing what you're saying is the kind of journey you guys have been through. How has that changed your processes internally, and also those adopted by people in your team?
We have gone through a bit of a journey over time where we've gone from gathering a little bit of data to, at one point in time, we probably even got to a point where we were maybe gathering a little bit too much data and people would spend too much time logging and reporting things. But I think that was an important part of the journey to help us find a sweet spot of where we weren't putting too much onus back on our retail teams to spend time in the office, reporting things when as a store manager, go back to my days, the number one thing about being a store manager is being out on the shop floor, talking to your customers and helping your business thrive through supporting your customers. So finding that kind of point where we captured enough data to make an informed decision, but we weren't putting too much onus back on the team to spend time filling in forms.
For the sake of doing so. Yeah, absolutely. So not sure what, obviously I know the other alternative you've been at, which is using spreadsheets and doing things manually. What is the main difference between Protecht and maybe some of their competitors or some of the other offerings that are out there?
So going back to when we were originally looking for a solution, so some time ago now, but really the key difference for us was Protecht were willing to develop their product and listen to our suggestions and recommendations. We couldn't really find anything that was off the shelf, spot on suited to a retailer. So we looked at a number of different solutions at the time, but yeah, the two key things out of the product thing was the Protecht product, was that they were willing to develop it, but also the team here were really, really good. So 10 years later, the product is very, very different, but a lot of the core team in particular are still the same, and we've managed to maintain a really, really good working relationship with them over 10 years. Right,
so that two-way, I guess, product development or solution development, would you say it's really key because there's never going to be something that's purely out of the box for everyone?
Yeah, I think back then it was incredibly important. Now it's still quite important, but we know a little bit more about our business. So we've kind of moved on from building and developing at the rapid rate that we were to now kind of refining what we've got. But that was certainly an integral part of that journey.
Instructive, awesome. Well, I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next 10 years. Thanks, you, Ben.